so that we begin what we are convinced must happen, a national conversation on the way forward for this country. We are gathered to share our vision and mission as this nation embarks on a transition that is yet to arrive at its destination. 2016 was the start of a transition. We are here today. We must prepare for tomorrow. We are convinced that even if the government does not feel that it is a transitional government, and it is not, this nation is at a crossroads and is in transition. It is in transition because a nation must have a founding instrument, and that is a constitution. And that founding instrument is yet to be crafted. 10 years after the change of 2016. Where are we? And where are we to go from henceforth? That is a fundamental conversation that DOI intends to have with the citizenry, the membership, and leadership of our party. Today, many voices could be heard regarding the future of that fundamental instrument. The National Assembly now has a bill before it aiming to provide a constitution for the Gambia. What we hear all over, some are saying it will disappear as it arrives in that National Assembly. But it has not disappeared. It has been introduced. So this shows that a nation must have an understanding of what belongs to all of us. Gambia belongs to all of us. It is our property. How it is to be governed depends on us, all of us, each and every one of us. And no single person should surrender that duty, that responsibility to determine the future of this country. What is happening with that fundamental instrument that should determine the existence of this nation and how it is to be governed? We have told you that our sense of history has enabled us to provide guidance. In 1994, the 1970 Constitution was overthrown and decrees made supreme in determining how this country had to be governed. When the 1996 Constitution was being adopted at a referendum, there were no political parties. There was no National Assembly. There was just general consultation. And anybody who spoke was just a busybody, but had no legal mandate to speak, no authority from the people. But it was either to have a constitution or to continue to be ruled under decrees. That was the choice before the Gambian people. And all who voted no were actually supporting for decrees to continue to be the supreme law of this country. Because of ignorance, those people thought that they were challenging the military, when in actual fact, they were going to strengthen military rule by not embracing a constitution. Today, many of those who used to call the 1997 a soldier's constitution can no longer say so, because it was that very constitution that we relied on after the coalition won to say that if the sitting president, outgoing president, did not leave office at the end of the term of his office, he would be a rebel. It is the Constitution that said that. That's why the coalition had the might and the audacity to say that. And that president is gone, leaving a 1997 Constitution without any term limits, without any provision for 50+1 to be the president of this country in the first round. No term limit existed in 1970. That's why the first president stayed here for almost 30 years. No term limit exists in the 1997 Constitution. That is why the last president stayed for 22 years. And it was only by galvanizing the Gambian people, regardless of party affiliation, that we were able to bring about this change, to give the country a new start. Fundamentally, those were the flaws, self-perpetuating rule, that brought the coalition together to effect a change where we will ensure a level ground for multi-party contest, defend the fundamental rights and freedoms of the citizens, raise their awareness, enable them to take ownership of power, and ensure that a transition would be nurtured that will prepare the Gambian people for a new political dispensation where power will truly emanate from their consent, and no one will govern without any limitation by the Constitution of their mandate to 2 terms. These debates is going to expand and it will be broadened. This press conference is merely designed to entice the citizenry to know that a debate is not only urgent, but is also absolutely necessary for the survival of this nation. Where we are today is that we have political parties. We have a National Assembly. A bill was brought in 2020 after consultation for promulgation. It did not die on arrival. It was introduced, the first reading, because that is very simple. What is required is simply for the person in charge of the bill to hand over a copy to the clerk and the short title read, and it will be considered read for the first time. Then it goes into the second reading. The Constitution under Section 226 says very clearly that it is the second and third reading of the bill that would matter. Those readings, if you fail to get 3/4 majority of all the members of the National Assembly, then that bill will not go for a referendum. National Assembly has legislative authority. The bill was brought to the National Assembly. And what the National Assembly was required to do, not every National Assembly member knew. And citizens must know why they are electing National Assembly members. It's for them to know. Because Section 101, subsection 2 of the Constitution states that no bill, except some, could be introduced in the National Assembly without the policy of the bill being indicated and the principles. The reasons why it should be introduced, what defects the bill seeks to remedy, and why it is reasonable to introduce it. Standing Order 64 of the National Assembly affirms that no bill should be introduced without the objects and reasons being indicated. And Standing Order 65 affirms that when it comes to the second reading, only the principles of the bill, should be discussed, debated on, and voted on. Only the principles. So a bill has been introduced. We can all say what we wish about consultation, non-consultation, the Barrow's bill, Cabinet's bill. We can call it by any name. But no Gambian who understands the right of citizen and the duty of the National Assembly would say that the president has power to impose provisions of a constitution on a nation or a National Assembly. The president is executive, can't have their intentions, but are mere intentions. They can only propose. They can only propose. The executive can only propose. Now that that bill has been introduced as required in the first reading, the next phase is what is crucial. And this is why we've invited you here today to know what we'll be telling the people as we move throughout the country. We will tell them that the executive has done its will, but unfortunately, that will cannot be imposed. What it has done is the end of the journey of the executive. It is required by Section 226 to publish its intention in the form of a bill in 2 publications of the Gazette, and the latest publication not being 3 months after the first publication, and then introduced in the National Assembly in not less than 10 days after the latest publication. It is now introduced. Now, the lawmakers are the crafters of law. The executive is not the maker of the law or the builder of the law. The National Assembly members are part of the makers of the law, because finally it is the people, through a referendum, who become the real makers, the ultimate makers of the law, of the Constitution. So your National Assembly members will now have to engage in a debate and vote to determine whether the bill will pass the second reading or not. And we are posing very fundamental questions to each Gambian, and each of you must answer that question. We have elected lawmakers. Should they whine that the executive has done its volition and brought whatever constitutional draft as a bill to them as it wishes? Should they query about that? That's the volition of the executive. But now, power belongs to the National Assembly members. They now have the power to ask what that executive brings and mold it into what they believe is in interest of the people, if they are really there for the people. It is now their duty to do that. But they cannot do that until the bill passes the second reading. Because the power they have is, after the second reading, if it is passed, they still have the power to throw it at the third reading, if they so desire. But they are not asked to vote on content in the second reading, then why is the bill there? Then it means that the executive is the builder of the Constitution or maker of the Constitution. Because if they bring what they want and then you just throw it out, then you are saying that they are the makers of the Constitution. You are throwing out what they brought. But National Assembly members are not put there for that purpose. They are there to make the law. The executive is just proposing. Now they are the one who should make the law. If the maker of the law says that he cannot make the law, then Gambia is in trouble. If the maker of the law is not ready to make the law, then Gambia is in trouble. Then dissolve your legislature. and know that it's not fit for purpose. The legislators have the power to allow the bill to pass the second reading and go to the committee stage. When it goes to the committee stage, their duty is to consult the Gambian people. They should have public hearing in and outside the National Assembly, from Katong to Koina, Bahara to Paloli, to listen what the people have to say about each of those provisions that the executive proposes. They have the might and authority to dismantle everything that the executive put in its proposal. But 3/4 majority is the threshold. And this is what the debate is all about. They can look at each provision, they may agree, they may disagree. If they see that this agreement does not allow them to ultimately have the 3/4 threshold in the third reading, well, the nation will know who was against what and who did what, who is to be blamed for what. The provisions needed by the nation, supported by the people, would have been known. If it is rejected by a few who made it impossible to have 3/4 majority, the population will know. 2026 is not far away. If the population truly are convinced that they want a constitution that is fit for purpose, and they know the content they want in that constitution, they know how they want to be governed, then they will deal with anybody who does not want to give them a constitution that is fit for purpose. So therefore, this opportunity we have that we never had for the nation to engage in consultation in order to prepare for a new republic must not at all be lost. The nation is moving. We are told that a budget of 37.8 billion has been passed into law, and now they are moving towards budget execution. Interestingly enough, to handle the National Debt Service, the sum has increased from 2024 to 2025 from 7 billion to 11 billion. 11 billion. This is more than your budget on education, 5 billion, or health, 2.7 billion, or works, 2.2 billion, agriculture, 900 and something million. So you are a nation thriving on debt. If you were to ask the minister, where is the money going to come from? From taxation. And non-tax sources, they're talking about asset recycling will contribute $50 billion. Over 3 billion, according to their own calculation. Asset recycling, recycling your bridge, nations build bridges, airports, seaports, to facilitate the transportation of goods, the movement of people, services, in order to facilitate development. Gambia should learn from GGC. The previous government came, of course, the government of the First Republic took GPMB, that's what GGC was called, bankrupted it, and sold it for 26 million. And even in selling it, is by installment, 7 million 1 year, 7 million and 6 million the last year. And that was the cornerstone of industrialization of a small country. It was producing, transforming your groundnuts into oil, producing groundnut cake, and then dump the shells. You see close to the bridge where they used to dump the shells, and then it will be inflamed, burnt, pollute the whole environment. How many years Doi told you what could be done with that groundnut shell? Now they are purchasing the groundnut shell at very expensive prices and using it to fuel what will heat the boilers in order to produce electricity. Now it's an industry. Buying groundnut shells is an industry for some people. For a nation that does not know how to make use of its assets, and why knowledge is so important in the building of a nation. But what happened? People who thought that they have taken over power through the barrel of the gun, they had the might, came, and what did they do? Took over GGC by force. They were taken to international arbitration. $11 million had to be paid for such an act. The world does not run by force. It is destroyed by force. Might can never triumph. It can only destroy, and destroy the mighty. And that's what happened. Now they are saying they are recycling your assets. And people will manage it for profit. But then, if there is currency devaluation of some sort, reduction of some sort, if the exchange rate is not favorable to the Gambia, what happens? Whatever you have to pay will increase. And then you have to increase the charges. And if the charges become unaffordable, what will people do? They'll look for options. The neighboring country may also develop sea, transport, and avoid your bridge. Anything can happen. Those are the risks that you must measure and see whether it's worth the while. And it's not worth the while. At the end of the day, your government will be nothing but the tax collector of their creditors. They'll collect tax to pay the debts they owe. So where do we go from here? We have said, and will be emphasizing during our tour, how to develop our agriculture. There are many projects. We'll tell you what those projects are, and they were doing, but these are just experiments. to be able to get 200,000 tons of rice, your country, my country is relying mainly on import. And we are not exporting. Look at the groundnut season. They are saying it's going to have a problem. We are not exporting. We are just importing. Collecting foreign exchange from anywhere just to import or get budget support. That's what is happening. And the foreign exchange is mainly coming from remittances from Gambians abroad. That is the basis of support of our dollars. So essentially, they are having more and more difficulty in buying quality goods. Just some days ago, somebody said, yes, you people were talking about this rice that they are selling. Even you said that Saddam was a good rice, but look, and they showed me a Saddam rice. If you see all these objects crawling, I don't know what name to give them, and this is supposed to be the good quality Saddam rice. So you will see all stocks will be sold and will be consuming such stocks. When we can produce all the rice, we are told that 1 hectare can produce 5 tons. If you go to Egypt, Australia, they are producing 12 tons, 10 tons. And you've devoted 500 million to Nari last year, 500 million this year, that's $1 billion. To look at organic fertilizer and seeds. So how will that go to the farmer and enable us to rely on about 60,000 hectares, and if it is 10 tons, half that, the more the greater the yield, less the land you will use. That's the purpose of research. What type of variety of crops do we need? And we will move towards food self-sufficiency. But to do that, we must empower the farmer. We must provide the farmer with seed, fertilizer, farming implements. And the farmer produces and return what you have given the farmer to the coffers. That is the way to go. No other way but that. Other than that, you will take your land and give it to a few. They engage in large-scale farming, but your farming population will move from the countryside into the towns because they will not have land to cultivate anymore, and there are no industries in the town to provide them with jobs. So you'll have massive unemployment, massive poverty, crime of all sorts. And that's why you have the Haitis of today. Rich land had gone through the first revolution of a republic. But today, gangs everywhere, to a point that they're equating poverty with the color of the skins of human beings. That is how low we have become in refusing to take charge of our destiny and putting people in office capable of harnessing our resources to ensure our development. Our problem is not resources. It's not intelligence. Our problem is power being entrusted to people who are not yet prepared to govern, to remove us from the poverty we find ourselves. That is the challenge. It is very clear to us as we move that our sea, aquaculture, can provide us with all the fish we need so that we can have good quality living. We can. We can produce all the poultry, all the ruminants. We don't have the snow that exists in other parts of the world. Beautiful weather. So why are we poor? You look at the energy resources. Go and find out. Just what panel? One panel. A solar panel. How much electricity it generates. To see that we can be self-sufficient in the production of electricity. In every nook and cranny of the country. We'll be giving you facts. This is just to open up the debate. We'll give you the facts. But now we are borrowing and borrowing. The Ministry of Energy is giving 1 billion to prepare to subsidize NAWEC, because you had the billions that it is owing Senelec of Senegal. Cap Power. That is what is happening. Yes, you see the energy, but where is sustainability? Where is sustainability? Development is about sustainability. Where there's no sustainability, there can only be dependency, not development. That's artificial, it's cosmetic. And then they attack you. Don't you see this? You don't want to appreciate what we are doing? Yes, because that's how they see development. They do not look at the quality dimension and the sustainability dimension. How are the people living? Coming to the end of what we consider as the beginning of this national conversation, we'll repeat that governing a country requires knowledge. You've heard in November announcement being made of a minister at the presidency also being a chief of staff. And we told them that the Constitution does not allow somebody to be a minister and also to be a part of the civil service. You cannot have that. And when posts are created, in the estimates, they are there. Chief of staff, when they were making the announcement, was a post in the civil service. And the Constitution says the ministers cannot handle posts in the civil service. So you see decisions being made, relying on Section 80, the president will create this post, this post. You create a post. Section 150 of the Constitution is saying that everything that is collected in revenue must be put in the consolidated fund. Section 151, everything that must come from the consolidated fund must be by law. You, as president, you create a post. Where will the money come from to pay for that particular post? Unless you have supplementary allocation again. So you see, you look at Section 173 of the Constitution. It tells you how you should appoint a permanent secretary. It is the Public Service Commission that should appoint a permanent secretary in consultation with the head of the civil service. But you see, it changes overnight. Maybe a newspaper like Foria, Uncle Sam, maybe we'll charge Uncle Sam, why don't you go and interview the chairman of the Public Service Commission and ask him whether he is the one making all these changes overnight in the positions of permanent secretary on a so frequent basis. So it is important that we know that those who are given authority to govern will only do their best. But it is you who put them there. Don't expect us to come and arrogantly say everything to them when you put them there. Somebody even called me on Guside and said, wasn't the 2021 election rigged? I said, how many votes did you put in my ballot box? How many votes did you put in my ballot box? In Halifa Sallah's ballot box? That's what I'm concerned with. So you give me the votes and you want me to go and challenge somebody else. I said, that's foolhardy. So the issue is for us as citizens to know that we are the leaders from the back. We get the type of leaders we put in office. And when we put them there, let's accept responsibility to hold them accountable. And let us not expect others to come day and night and start wrangling about how they are governing the country. We've told you how they are governing the country. We've told you how they're handling agriculture. We've told you how they're handling every aspect of life, education, etc. And that's what we are ready now to continue to do. You've heard them say they've increased the salaries of civil servants. A particular person we will not mention said, well, compare Nigeria, compare Sierra Leone. Now our base is $3,000. $3,000, a bag of rice, 2,200. 50 kilo. And you beat your chest on that? You hear some people say, well, the problem of the civil service, there are some people on top, they are receiving more, others are receiving 3,000. Gambians pay what the top civil servant receive. That is what this middle income society should receive. You go to the judges, etc. These people cannot upkeep their families. Petrol, $500 a day is how much? $15,000 a month. Even if you receive $30,000, $15,000 on petrol. The other $15,000, what are you going to do with it? Meat every day, $450 is, that's how much? That's $12,000, just meat. People are joking. Gambia is not a middle income country. That's why you have diabetes, all sorts of illnesses. They are nutritional. People cannot afford good food, good quality food. That's the challenge. Not because we don't have it, we have the ocean, we have everything, but because we do not have the capacity to harness it. What type of human beings are we? We have the resources and we cannot harness it to live. That is the challenge. Let's challenge ourselves. That's the conversation. If we engage in that conversation as a people, until we have the answers to the problems of our country, we will decide on the type of leadership who should lead us. 2025 is a year of engagement. Constructive engagement with each of us, because each of us has a contract with nation and people. We either fulfill it or honor it with disregard at our peril. And we are happy that you come to join us today. We'll be giving you more information, concrete information about your economy, about what is wrong, and how to right it. And we hope that at the end of this journey, before the end of 2025, we will know what our constitution is all about. You cannot talk about coalitions and what is going to happen in 2026 when we don't even know whether we are going to have two term limits, whether we are going to have 50 plus. We don't know anything. And people are not talking about that. That's not their concern. That should be our concern. Once we resolve that, then we know what we must do. Tactic is based on concrete realities, not inventions. So we hope that we are opening up this conversation with you, and it's your duty to engage all political figures on all these issues and help the Gambian people to get the facts and factors governing the underdevelopment of this country, and to also know exactly what must be done to ensure a path that would lead us to liberty, dignity, and prosperity. Thank you very much.